Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Bratt, and this week's guest is 2013 Van Buren graduate Zach Wehrle, a tax senior or accountant for EY. In this episode, Zach shares how a typical day looks in his position, why he moved into accounting from a criminal justice career, how accounting could make him more likely to get a position with the FBI, and much more. Whether you are interested in a career as an accountant or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Zach shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Zach, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd like to start by just asking, what does a typical day look like for a tax senior at EY?
Well, first, I'd probably start on the time of the year that we're looking at. If it's about January to August or January to April, that's typically our income tax provision time period. So we're helping out audit the tax items on the financial statements for companies. During that time of the year, it's the traditional busy season that people think of for accountants. So typically we're out at clients 3 or 4 days a week, just going out there assisting like the core audit team who audit all the other items on the balance sheet that aren't tax related. So we're just assisting them. And so that's the traditional busy season. But then there's also another busy season for tax accountants during the fall time period. It's usually about August to October 15th, where we're helping companies file their tax returns. That could vary depending on the type of business we're helping. But so there we're just traditionally filing their tax returns. So just the business's version of a personal income tax return.
So I heard the word audit there, and I feel like that's the word that everyone is afraid of, an audit by the IRS. How is your audit different from that? And I guess what's the ultimate goal? Is it to avoid an IRS audit?
So for our audits, basically, if you're a publicly traded company, every year you have to file a 10K. So basically, what we're doing is we're ensuring that companies are accurately reporting how they're doing, how their business is going, and that they're being as fair and honest as possible. So whether if you're a creditor or you're wanting to invest in the company, so we're just helping you ensure that you're getting a good look into that business. So when we're going in there, we're just making sure that they're on the tax side, that their tax calculations are correct. There's no fundamental errors, or maybe throughout the course of an audit, you might discover fraud that the company might be going on within the company. So it's similar but different. Ultimately, we're both trying to help the business and help the outside opinion of that business as well.
So really what you're doing can be obviously a very touchy subject. If you discover fraud, obviously that's a huge deal. And obviously you're probably trying to help businesses, not necessarily avoid taxes, but where they can get write-offs and things like that. So there is a lot of pressure on someone like you to do your job really well, because if you don't, it could have some big impacts for your clients.
Yeah, definitely. No. So a lot of times, like this general stigma of, we say we're doing an audit, there is that bad connotation, like, oh, these are the bad guys. But throughout, like especially at EY, we try to come out with a different, like, we're just trying to help the business. So if we find something we might see wrong, we present it in a way that they have a chance to correct it and whatnot. So just trying to just build a better business perspective for them and for the outsiders as well.
You talked a little bit about traveling to see your clients.
Mhm.
Are most of your clients, well, I guess a couple things. Does EY have a lot of offices around the country, around the world, or is it, I know you're located in Cleveland, and then are those clients, or in your position, do you have to do a lot of overnight travel, or are you pretty much, you can drive to the client and drive home every night?
So EY is what in public accounting, there's like the big four, they refer to it as. So EY is one of the four biggest public accounting firms in the world. So we'll have offices all across the country, all across the world. So we're in, I don't know how many, but quite a few countries as well. So for me individually, so Northeast Ohio has a lot of manufacturing clients. So most of my clients are located downtown Cleveland, but occasionally, if another office might be understaffed or whatnot, you might get placed on a client that might be out of Columbus, or we do have some clients in Toledo as well, or even this past fall, I was on a client that was based out of Minnesota. And on that client, all of the different team members were from different offices. We had another person from Minnesota or Las Vegas. So in those instances, I haven't had to travel a lot to go physically to that place. But sometimes you can. We have a bunch of different trainings and whatnot. So sometimes, depending on your rank, when we have trainings that we're mandated to do, we might do it all from one location in Columbus and try to team with people from there. Or if you're a new hire, like when I was an intern, I did a training in St. Charles, Illinois. So all the interns that year, we flew out into Chicago and spent a week out there, which was really cool. And it was a great opportunity to meet people from all across the country in a similar position as me. So you can get asked to travel, and it kind of depends on the service line. So I'm in tax, but if you're an auditor, you might have overnight travel to do site visits and different things of that nature. So it kind of just depends on what service line you do and then what time of year you're at, I guess.
Right. As you think back to high school, when you were graduating, what were your career plans at that point?
Point, I would say my career goals were to work in criminal justice, make it into the federal government, and kind of just go from there. But my mindset was solely kind of on that. So I went to the University of Findlay. It was just to learn as much as I could there and then start my career and get to the federal government.
So you went to the University of Findlay, earned a degree in criminal justice, and then you worked for a little under 4 years, it looks like, in the criminal justice system. You did an internship in adult probation. You ended up being a probation officer in Hancock County, and then you became a release officer up in Cleveland Municipal Court. I guess tell me a little bit about that. Were there any unique experiences you had? And I guess, is there anything specific that happened that led to you making a career change? Or was it maybe a lot of little things that added up to moving into the accounting field?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing I would, no matter what career path you're interested in, I started all my internships turned into full-time jobs, and they either reaffirmed maybe how I felt about a profession or a job, or maybe opened my eyes to certain things. So, as a probation officer, I interned at the University of Findlay with probation, and then I started there. It was a great experience. I loved it. I got to work with firsthand with a lot of different aspects of the justice system. So I was in court testifying on behalf of probationers. Um, I was also in the jail meeting the jail staff, sheriff's deputies, and all them. When things went bad, talking to the police department if one of my clients got into trouble. So forming those relationships was really cool just to see how all the different components of the justice system were intertwined. And then when I met my wife, Adri, she got a job in Cleveland. So that led me to pursuing opportunities here. And that's how I kind of landed in Cleveland Municipal Court. And at that time and currently, jail reform was a really big proponent or at the forefront of our government. I was a part of a new department where we tried to help judges make the best decisions for offenders when they went to court for their initial arraignment, just to ensure that only the most high risk or people that truly needed to be incarcerated while their case was pending, only those types of offenders were being incarcerated while their case was pending. So that was a really awesome opportunity. It was new, my position was new, so we were all kind of learning on the fly, and it was awesome. I met a lot of wonderful people here, and the kind of like the bigger city, I've always had a natural draw to that. So from a quality of life, I really enjoyed it as well. And around that time, I was kind of thinking back to my original goal of making it into the federal government. And I was like, man, I'm not sure that the career outlook or the growth is as consistent as I'd like. I saw that there was maybe a potential for my career to kind of be stagnant. So at the time, I wanted to go back to school and try to make myself a better candidate for the federal government. And for those types of positions, they're really looking for multidisciplinary people, well-rounded individuals who have diverse backgrounds that aren't just strictly criminal justice. And my brother at the time was studying accounting at Ohio Dominican, and then my mom has done like book accounting for local small businesses. So talking to both of them, I was like, I knew that I had maybe a potential draw to that line of work or that kind of work, and so that's when I went to Baldwin Wallace and met with their head of accounting, and started going to school while also working full time. And then I got an internship at Ernst and Young where I had to unfortunately leave my pretrial release position. And then once I got into accounting, it was like the hooks were in. I just kind of started falling in love with it more and more. And then that federal government may be in line for me now because I do have the accounting experience to make myself a more attractive candidate, but I'm very happy at my position now. So
That's interesting because, yeah, I just assumed it was a complete break from your original plan, but really it's just a continuation of that original plan. Maybe
yeah,
you continue on that path. Maybe you go and you stay on the accounting only path. But that's interesting because I never would have thought about criminal justice and accounting going together. But, the way you explained it, that makes perfect sense. And, I think that's interesting. You talk about that desire for growth and, I think that's something everyone wants. They want to know that they're making progress towards something. And again, you're still doing that, but you're also, enjoying life as an accountant. So that
yeah,
is really, really interesting.
yeah.
I mean, what would you say the odds are? I mean, is it a 50-50 shot that you
Yeah.
go the government law enforcement route, or what are you thinking at this point?
I think right now I'm very happy where I'm at. So I would say probably less than 50 that I go federal government, but
Right.
you never know. One thing as I've gotten older and married and then starting looking into potentially having kids somewhat in the future, part of that is just thinking about maybe their quality of life, not just thinking about myself, but thinking about them as well. Because when you're a probation officer, like in Hancock County, going out and seeing offenders and just seeing some of the extracurricular stuff that comes with your day job kind of I'm not sure that that comes into play as well. So I think I'm very happy in accounting and probably less than 50% chance that I might go federal government. But oddly enough, when I started at UI, one of my coworkers applied to the FBI and he's now an accountant for them. So
Okay.
it's cool knowing him and seeing someone else like actually go and execute on that thought or plan that I had. So knowing that it's a very real opportunity, should I choose to pursue it, kind of
Right.
reaffirm that I made the right decision.
Right. Right. And it's good to have that connection there too.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and like you said, I mean, it could be 20 years down the road you decide to do
Yeah.
something like that, and it's still there as an opportunity. So I think that's very cool. Knowing how much you've enjoyed accounting, I mean, do you ever think what would have been if you had started down the accounting path in the first place, or do you think things have worked out the way they were
Yeah.
supposed to work out?
For sure. It's interesting that you said that because when I first started, obviously I'd taken that career hiatus on a different path. So when I was starting as a staff at UI, I was a couple years older than the my coworkers and friends. So it was a different perspective and it was kind of just discouraging because I was older. But now having gone down this path and seeing how my background that's non-traditional has helped me approach topics or situations and think about it differently and having just a better perspective or outlook on it. I don't have any regrets about going to criminal justice first. And I met a lot of wonderful people along the way that I still consider friends and counselors and mentors. So I'm very happy with the way everything's worked out so far.
I plan to ask this question later, but what you just said kind of leading me to it. Are there any things that you learned in your criminal justice education and then your work that you see yourself applying or using even now as an accountant?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was a probation officer, being really young and then having potentially people on my caseload that are much older than me, learning how to talk to different people and having to like earn respect and just be respectful, keep an open mind, never go in with a preconceived idea of, oh, this person's this way, just being able to talk to anyone, being able to form a relationship, and then just being able to think outside of the box. Don't always, you can't cookie cut every situation in life. You always have to kind of go at it with an open mind, an open perspective. I think that's really helped me a lot so far.
Was it difficult to go back to school after taking off 2 years? Or, obviously you talked a little bit about now you're older than a lot of the other
Yeah.
people, but was
Mhm.
it tough to get back into that routine?
Yeah, it was. I think it was at first, that first kind of semester, because there was a lot of night classes, and my schedule at pretrial release was like 5 a.m. to about noon. So that, like going that, then taking a midday nap, it was like an adjustment period or whatnot. But then once I kind of got into a routine, it was okay. And oddly enough, I'm unofficially going back to school studying for the CPA as well. So that's almost like full-time studying in and of itself. So
How long do you have to prepare before you take that test?
it's 4 parts. So unfortunately, you can't sit for all four at one time. So every kind of person's different. It is quite a daunting like workload to go study for it, pass it, and whatnot. So it kind of just depends on the person that you talk to. But I would say it takes a couple, at least multiple months probably to study for all four. And if you're fortunate enough to pass it, that also plays into it. Because if you fail a test, you have to retake it, restudy, and kind of go through it all over again.
What doors will that open in your career if you do become a CPA?
So at most of the big four will have, as in order to be hired on, depending on your service line. So as in order to become a manager, you have to pass the CPA. So managers at EY, you're a staff for 2 years, senior for three, and then you're open for promotion. You can get promoted earlier than that too, based upon your performance and whatnot. But so in order to make that manager level, you have to be a CPA. And then outside of just at EY, it's a great accreditation. It's a great certification. Like a lot of outside people really, if you look at accounting jobs on LinkedIn, a lot of them say CPA certified or CPA eligible. So there is like a credit hour threshold that you have to meet along with a couple other smaller requirements. So it really kind of just sets you apart. It can really open a lot of doors for you.
When I think accounting, and you've kind of debunked this a little bit, but I think numbers, sitting in a computer,
Yeah.
looking at the computer and all the numbers all day, every day.
Yeah.
And you've talked about, you're talking to people, you're traveling, so forth. But when it comes right down to it, is that a majority of your day?
Majority like sitting and crunching numbers kind of
Right.
thing. It is part of it, but most of it is just, it all just depends on the clientele that you're working with, the business that you're at, because some people might, and what their needs are, it kind of just depends. It is a lot of teaming though, so that's really cool. Like there is like a stereotype that tax accountants just sit in like a small room by themselves and they're just sitting there going at it. So that is, I would say that part is debunked because I'm always working with people. Tax accountant people are fun. We do have personalities kind of thing. So
Okay. That definitely that stereotype out there,
yeah.
no doubt about it. During tax season, are you working a lot longer hours or not so much?
Yeah, so at the Big Four, a lot of different places will have like minimum chargeable hour thresholds that you have. So from about January to May or April, depending on if you're doing individual tax returns or just business, there you are typically working more than you would during the summertime and whatnot. Typically maybe 6 days a week or so, maybe, but it all kind of just depends on your cases or your clients, what kind of clients you're on, the timing of their returns, the timing of their audits, and that kind of thing. So some of the regional firms will also be busier, but it's all kind of service line and individually specific.
Since you do have such a broad range of experiences with the law enforcement and accounting, uh, What advice would you give to high school students who are maybe considering those career fields?
Yeah.
Again, maybe together the way you have brought them together, or just completely separately. Are there any things that they could or should be doing now while in high school or soon after high school to start preparing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the main things you can do is don't be afraid to go and just go up to people, talk to people, and start networking as young as you can because those connections, whether or not you leverage it into an internship, a job opportunity, or just having them in your life to help advise you on different situations that might come up, just networking as much as possible. I would also encourage you not to kind of just look at it in like a pigeonhole. Don't be afraid to try different things. Don't be afraid to make yourself as well-rounded of a candidate as possible. So if you're in college, join the finance club, investment club, volunteer, do jobs, whatever you can to make yourself well-rounded. And then a lot of times, like at EY and then also at probation, your what's on the paper gets you in, but then your personality, your work ethic, and the impression that you leave on people, that's what really gets you those opportunities. And going back to the networking, that's really where you can set yourself apart.
And I think that's something that a lot of students, they are very concerned about the resume. And the resume, like you said, is important. You need to have the experiences on there to get that foot in the door. But then what really is going to set people apart is the kind of people they are and so
Yeah.
forth. So that's a very good reminder on that. As we wrap up, and as you think about yourself when you were in high school and how much you've learned since then about careers, what is it that you know now that you really wish you had known when you were in high school?
All in all, I think it's never too late to go after your dreams or switch it up. Don't be afraid. Like there isn't just one line of path to be in the criminal justice or an accountant. Take detours or boomerangs is commonly in public accounting that we refer to it. So don't be afraid. There is no one path. You're not doing anything wrong if you take a little hiatus and pursue this. Don't be afraid to dream. Go for it. It's never too late to make a switch. Like I switched, and then I'm 4 or 5 years older than all my colleagues, and that's okay. It just gives you a different perspective, and that can be what actually gets you in the door later on in life. Being able to just be more diversified, I think that'd be the main thing.
Zach, I really appreciate all those insights. And again, I really didn't know what to expect based on looking at your LinkedIn profile and seeing the criminal justice and then the accounting. But yeah, it makes perfect sense how all those things came together. So sounds like you are doing very well and you have some very good insights. And I really appreciate you sharing all of that. And good
Thank you.
luck to you as you continue your career journey.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.